Grizzlies fans know it's the team that gives you the edge. Big River Steel does too. And much like the Grizzlies have recruited legendary talent, we want you to be part of our team. Are you ready to be part of something legendary? Then visit www.bigriversteel.com. That's www.bigriversteel.com.
Live from the Built Ford Tough studio at FedEx Forum, it's the Gary Parrish Show, presented by Ortho South, on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app. Now, here's your host, Gary Parrish.
Back in Memphis, producing the program. Glad he's with me. Glad you're with me. Hope you're getting through the day best you can.
Well, Daddy lost most everything on horse, whiskey, and wedding rings.
And I hope you fell in love with Zach Edey over the past 2 years while he was winning back-to-back National Player of the Year awards at Purdue, because either way, he's now a Memphis Grizzly. Yes, the Grizz used the 9th pick in the draft last night on Zach Edey, the former Purdue star. We'll talk through it momentarily. First, though, quickly, let me set today's schedule for you. In the next segment, about 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be joined by the man who recruited, signed, and developed Zach Edey into a top 10 pick. It's a 5-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. His name's Matt Painter. He was coaching in the national championship game back in April. He's going to join me here in about 20 minutes. I'll ask him how much he knew about the Grizzlies' interest in Zach Edey. When did he realize they really might use the 9th pick on the draft on the young man that has helped him win back-to-back Big Ten titles and make the Final Four for the first time? Matt Painter from Purdue. He's going to join me in the next segment. When I finish talking to Matt, I'll take a break. Come back. Do 5 more things you need to know, at which point we're going to discuss 5 previously undiscussed stories. Among them, Zachary Richichet, as expected, did go number 1 in last night's draft. He's an Atlanta Hawk. I'll tell you what I think about that. We'll do it in about 40 minutes. Dalton Connect tumbled all the way down to 17th last night. Lakers grabbed him. I think that's good for the Lakers. Could end up being good for Dalton Connect. We'll get into that in just a bit. The Spurs ended up using the 4th pick in the draft on Stephon Castle. We'll spend some time on that in the 3rd segment. I bet you, I don't know for sure, but I bet you Giannis Antetokounmpo is not so happy with the Bucks right now. I'll tell you what they did in last night's draft. We'll do that a little later on in the show. And Kyle Filipowski, if you want him, he's still available. Once projected as a lottery pick, nobody took him in the top 30. We'll spend a few minutes on that during a segment we call 5 More Things You Need to Know. Then we'll eventually do GP's Carryout. We'll call it a day. So that's the rundown. We got a lot to get to, but I did want to start with the 2024 NBA Draft, first round. It was held last night inside Barclays Center in Brooklyn. As I'm confident you already know, the Memphis Grizzlies neither moved up nor moved down. They stayed at number 9, and they used the 9th pick on the 2-time National Player of the Year, Zach Edey. Big Bet Bennett, you were out at Southland last night surrounded by Grizzlies fans. When they got the news, what was the reaction? When you got the news, what was the reaction?
Oh, the reaction was pretty positive when they announced it was him. You know, it was kind of weird because you had the few moments where there were rumblings that the Grizzlies were trying to move up and trade with Charlotte to get to number 6 and potentially take Donovan Clingan. So you had people thinking that was what was going to happen, and then pretty quickly it was apparent that that wasn't going to happen, and the Grizzlies were going to stay at 9 and pick at 9. And the reaction was really positive at the draft party last night, and positive from me too.
It is wild that most of the reporting leading up to the draft was the Grizzlies love Donovan Clingan, and they might try to go up to 3 to get him, or 5 to get him, or 6 to get him. And it turns out that any of those numbers would have been good enough because he lasted till 7th in last night's draft. He's now a Portland Trailblazer. We'll see what they do with their other bigs that are already on the roster. And I guess we will never know for sure, no matter what somebody says publicly. But either way, even though the thought was that the Grizzlies would move up, and if not move up, maybe move down, I think the last thing some people thought the Grizz would do on the first night of the 2024 NBA draft is actually just sit at 9 and make a selection. But that is what they did, and it was Zach Edey. And I know the question some might have, because I was getting it texted to me last night, texted to me this morning. The question some might have is, all right, is this what you would have done with the 9th pick? And so let me answer that right off the top. I do a mock draft. I could have put Zach Edey to the Grizzlies at any point over the past year if I wanted to. Nobody was stopping me. I never did that. So to answer the question directly, no, this is not what I would have done with the 9th pick in the draft last night. With the way the draft unfolded, I think with the 9th pick, under these circumstances, I would have probably selected Dalton Knecht. One thing I promise you, I'm never going to come on here and lie to you and act like my opinions that I had last week or 2 weeks ago or a month ago weren't my actual opinions. Sometimes opinions can change. When that happens, I'll let you know. But it would be dishonest of me to sit here and say, absolutely, I love this because it's exactly what I would have done with the 9th pick. It's not what I would have done with the 9th pick. I think I would have selected Dalton Knecht. Now, we can look up in 3 years or 5 years and see who's right and who's wrong. But for the record, last night with the 9th pick, given the first 8 players that were off the board, I believe that I would have selected Dalton Knecht. That acknowledged, I understand the idea behind what the Grizzlies did. Like, 2 things can be true at once. It's not what I would have done, but I can understand why they did it. First and foremost, the thing to remember is that this kind of center, and to be clear, there is no center like this center. This is a completely unique individual, a one of one. But, big-bodied, more traditional than not centers have worked with the Grizzlies. Jonas Valanciunas is a big-bodied, more traditional than not center. He worked well with Ja and Jaren. Steven Adams is a big-bodied, more traditional than not center. He worked well with Ja and Jaren. So I don't have a hard time envisioning how this thing could work, but I do also understand the concerns that people have. Among them, sure, he's physically overwhelming, but he's also, relatively speaking, slow-footed, and teams are going to put him in ball screens, which could obviously cause problems. So you just have to hope that whatever he can give you on the offensive end of the court in terms of setting screens and getting scoring opportunities as a roller, you got to hope that's enough to offset the stuff on the other end of the court that could make defensive assignments complicated. This is a smart front office. I promise you, I haven't said anything they haven't already considered that they don't already know. They have a plan for this. They have a vision for this. It doesn't mean it'll work out because nothing is guaranteed, as I'm always eager to say this time of the year. If you have opinions on basketball prospects, whether you are me, Bennett, Sam Vecini, Jonathan Gavoni, Kyle Boone, Pat Riley, Sam Presti, Zach Kleiman, sometimes you're going to be right and sometimes you're going to be wrong. And in this one, buddy, I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to look up in 3 to 5 years and go, my God, I remember the morning after night 1 of the 2024 NBA draft, I said I would have probably taken Dalton Knecht with the 9th pick as opposed to Zach Edey with the 9th pick. But God, doesn't that sound stupid now? Because look at Zach Edey. He's a high-level starting center for a Grizzlies franchise that is now competing for Western Conference titles and possibly NBA championships. If you listen to this show regularly, you know that there's nothing I like more than being right about anything. But on this one, hey, I'm happy to be wrong. Bennett, do you share that skepticism? I don't know that you and I ever talked in any sort of detail about Zach Edey. I'm understanding of the mindset here. I'm open-minded to the idea that it could work, but I also, am aware that there are skeptics out there because, they have Twitter accounts as well, and they were, firing off tweets about it last night. Where are you at on we look up in 3 years and this is going to be a wonderful pick or prove to be a mistake?
I don't know if it's going to be a wonderful pick, but in my opinion, I don't think there's any way it's going to be a mistake, because I think that, first off, I thought that if the Grizzlies were going to stay at 9 and draft at 9, that it was a real possibility they were going to take Zach Edey. And I think that the guy can give you meaningful NBA minutes right now. Like, I'm with you. I think he's probably going to be the starting center day one. That's where I'm at this moment, depending on what they do in free agency. I don't see any way he's going to be an NBA bust. Like, just the size, the physicality, the rebounding. I think that he has a unique skill set that the Grizzlies desperately need. And I think he's the second best center in this draft. And I think he's going to be an NBA player for a long time, depending on health. That's where I'm at.
I think people get caught up on he was picked 9th. Like, if he was picked 19th, there would be less whatever. People get really caught up if you were picked somewhere, either positively or negatively, that runs counter to what most of the big boards and mock drafts that were available on the internet suggested was reality, whether it was ever a reality or not. So my point is, if the whole world, or at least most of the world, doesn't think Zach Edey should be a top 10 pick, if you take him in the top 10, then people think that you took him too early. But the truth is, when we look back on this thing, this will either be considered good or bad, and it probably will have very little connection to where he was selected. In other words, if Zach Edey is a good, competent starting center for the Memphis Grizzlies, nobody will ever say this sentence. Yeah, he's been really good, better than I expected, but I still think taking him at 9 was too high. If he's good, you'll never say that. And if he's bad, you know what you'll say? He's just bad and it was a miss. You won't get too caught up with where he was picked. I mean, sure, you'll, highlight it by saying, and he was a top 10 pick, and now look. But if he's good, you won't care. And if he's bad, you'll be mad no matter what. And I really do think that's the truth for most picks in any draft. If you end up happy with the person you selected, you won't ever look back on it and go, but I think I took him a few spots or even 10 spots too high. You'll just be happy that you hit on a guy. And I do like the conviction here. I'll tell you that. I can respect running counter to, I'll just keep saying, what the internet thinks you should have done. Because if you're running a basketball franchise in this era, when there's a million mock drafts and a million people talking on television in different places about everything you're going to do, the easiest thing to do is what other people think you should do. So the easiest thing for the Grizzlies to do last night, assuming they could have accomplished it, is to put a package together to move up and select Donovan Clingan. And you know what everybody would have said? They would have said, the Grizzlies, here they go again. Geniuses just like always. They just moved up and got the best defensive center in the draft to put with Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. A+. Zach Kleiman, A+. Everybody, A+. Whether it works out or not, you know what everybody would have said last night? You did the smart thing. You moved up. You got aggressive. You went and got Donovan Clingan. A+, A+. And if it doesn't work out, you look up in 3 years and you're like, my God, they moved up and gave up a lot of stuff to get Donovan Clingan, and he's just a guy. In fact, geez, you could have just set at 9 and took it Zach Edey. Look now, Zach Edey's better than Donovan Clingan. If you would have moved up and taken Donovan Clingan and he hit, everybody'd say you're smart. And if he doesn't hit, you know what everybody'd say in 3 years? Well, I mean, yeah, it didn't work out, but I understood what they were doing because, that's what I would have done as well. I'd have moved up to go get Donovan Clingan. That's the much safer thing. If you ain't wanting to put your chin out there, if you ain't wanting to put your neck on the line, you know what's much harder to do? When most mock drafts, most big boards, and lots of basketball people say Zach Edey should not be on the other end of a top 10 pick. This is crazy. What are you guys looking at? To then go out and do it anyway, that's putting your chin out there a little bit. That's opening yourself up to criticism, and I just can't imagine you do something like that unless you feel strongly about it. So I do respect the conviction here, and I will tell you, you start talking about the pre-draft process with Zach Edey, there are a couple of things I heard from people who were fans of his leading up to last night that I thought were interesting. And one was that, and I heard this consistently from people who work in the NBA, agents, that kind of stuff, that if you went into a workout with Zach Edey with an open mind, like you bring him in because you're genuinely intrigued and interested in this, you left the workout and the lunch or the dinner or the whatever more impressed. Like if you liked Zach Edey when he walked in your door, you loved him when he walked out your door. I heard that consistently. So he was making good impressions on everybody. The other thing that I heard consistently is that one of the things the people who like him like a lot is that he hasn't been playing basketball very long, but he's gotten great at it very quickly. And the year-over-year improvement is undeniably remarkable. This is a guy who was a sub-400 recruit coming out of high school. Then he was a role player as a freshman, split time as a sophomore. And then he becomes the biggest and best thing in college basketball. One of the most decorated things in the history of college basketball, certainly the modern era. And that he was able to go from that to that quickly. How much better can he get? If he's already improved this much in such a short a period of time, like next year, I believe, will only be his 8th year of organized basketball. People really like the idea that he hasn't been doing this for very long, but he got good at it very quickly. So those are two things that I think worked in the favor of Zach Edey in the pre-draft process. And then another thing, and then I'll take a break, come back, we'll talk to Matt Painter about it. The people who are skeptical of him focus so much on the defensive end of the court and what they believe he will not be able to do, like get into ball screens and switch on to smaller players and guard in space. There's going to be a lot of, drop coverages, and you're going to have to get creative. And yes, I assume there will be a series someday where he's going to have a hard time staying on the court. Hope I'm wrong, but I can, imagine that as well, long as we're being honest. But one thing I've had multiple people say to me is, why are we focused so much on the defensive end of the court solely and not focused on the idea that this guy was one of the most efficient and overwhelming offensive players in the history of college basketball? And oh, by the way, in his last game at the collegiate level, he happened to be matched up with the guy a lot of people said was the best defensive center in this NBA draft, Donovan Clingan. And you could go look at the box score or watch the film. He cooked him. Clingan could not do anything with Zach Edey. So you're telling me you're concerned about Zach Edey because of possible issues on the defensive end of the court. Let me tell you why to be excited about him. And that's because the guy who some people thought was the best defensive center in this draft, and a lot of people believe can be a franchise center for a long time, he was asked to largely guard Zach Edey one-on-one in the national championship game, and he could not do anything with him. Like, Edey just overwhelmed him the way he overwhelmed basically everybody for the past 2 years. So, sure, the defensive stuff, that's there, but on offense, this guy is a real weapon, and if you're going to spend a top 10 pick on him, you have to be drawn to that and have real ideas about how you plan to use him. This is a draft pick I'm certain that the front office sat down with Taylor Jenkins and his staff, and they're having real smart, big conversations about how to get creative and maximize Zach Edey as a professional player. Matt Painter figured out how to maximize him as a collegiate player, turned him into one of the best of all time. How do you maximize him as an NBA player? That's the Grizzlies' job from this point going forward. And you know what? I'll ask Matt Painter how he thinks he would do it. We'll do that next. Matt Painter, Purdue coach. On the other side of this break, it's the Gary Parrish Show, presented by Ortho South.
If you look at it, as far as the the number 9 pick over the years. There's been some pretty good players that have surfaced at number 9. Of course, Dirk Nowitzki, who won a championship. There's been a lot of great guys, but who knows if there is a great guy in this draft.
Hey, Grizzlies fans, be sure to tune in to Grizzbeat, where the panel and I break down all things Grizzlies and take a look at the rest of the NBA as well. The show is live every Wednesday, 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Heart Royal Flush Tour 2024. November 14th, FedEx Forum. A journey through the hits and timeless classics. The iconic band returns with special guests. Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening. Tickets on sale now at heart-music.com. Heart with Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening. Produced by AEG Presents.
Now for a limited time, the new $1.99 crispy tender wraps are here at Sonic. Who could deny a crispy chicken tender with bold flavors like hickory barbecue and cheesy Baja? And we can't forget the crisp lettuce and melty cheese to make the perfect bite. Wrap yourself up with some TLC, tender, love, and chicken for only $1.99. Sonic $1.99 crispy tender wraps. Tax not included, limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
Look at the score. Look at the score he just did. Hey, but look at the bench though. Look at number 3. Right before I walked in the locker room, Danny Ainge pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, Tony Allen, come here. Let me give you a little basketball etiquette. When you're down 40, do not do an in-game windmill. It's just disgusting for the game."
The Chris Vernon Show, presented by Caesars Sportsbook, live weekdays at noon on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app. We have another edition. This will be the 3rd edition of the Debate Club. You guys are going to sell a shoe to Mr. Bennett Doyle, our producer over here.
Oh, yeah.
I saw these.
I've seen these. I saw these on social media, too.
It's the perfect house shoe.
I know, right?
Like, yeah, it's not even a house shoe. I bet you they're really comfortable. You know, you heard of unisex. This is unifoot. Oh, my God.
The Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Welcome back to the Gary Parrish Show, presented by Ortho South. You know, the Grizzlies selecting the 2-time National Player of the Year. It wasn't the only thing that happened last night. Dalton Connect fell to 17. He's now a Los Angeles Laker. Cal Filipowski is still waiting to get picked. We'll discuss those things in the next segment. But right now, my next guest is a 5-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. It's the 2019 NABC National Coach of the Year and the man who recruited and signed Zach Edey before helping develop him into one of the greatest college basketball players of all time. His name is Matt Painter. He coached Purdue in the national title game back in April. Nice enough to join us on this Thursday morning. Matt, it's GP. Thank you for your time. How you been, man?
Good, man. Good. Just, excited for Zach getting selected by Memphis and look forward to watching him.
So I think the first time we Memphians knew that the Grizzlies were interested in Zach is when Zach told us they were interested at the Combine. I'm not sure if he was supposed to let that slip, but he did. When did you know he really might be an option to be the next starting center of the Memphis Grizzlies with the top 10 pick?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't. I don't recall anybody coming in here. They obviously had to come to a game, but I don't remember anybody from Memphis coming to a practice, coming to a workout, calling me, anything. And like I always say, that's some of the best work because they're indirectly getting their information. They got to make sure it's right. But like I listened to their GM in an interview and he was just spot on. And so I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, that sometimes kind of working in silence is the best way because you want to be able to navigate in that draft. And because there's a lot of unpredictability in the draft. And so like, I think it's a great fit. Obviously it's a well-coached team. They have good pieces and I think they need him.
So I'm fascinated by this. I didn't assume this. My
Right.
understanding of drafts is, I mean, I've heard stories of Brad Stevens being on the phone with, somebody's high school principal, Jason Tatum's high school principal,
Right.
before they take him. So you have not talked to Zach Kleiman or the Grizzlies front office about Zach Edey to this point.
No, sir.
Wow.
No,
Wow.
sir. And
So
like
they-
at first, when that happened to me, like when we had Carl Landry and a long time ago, and like I thought that was like, odd or whatever, but I actually respect it now because when we found out about Braden Smith and how good he was and no high majors had offered him, and I was like, right away, I just shut it down. I'm like, no, I'm not letting anybody know that I like him. Let's get this sealed. Let's get this done. And then let's move on. Let's get him. And now, he was first team all Big Ten as a sophomore and he had no high major offers. So like, I don't look at that as a negative. I kind of look at it as a positive because they're still doing their work. They're just not directly getting their information. They're indirectly getting it.
One of the things I've heard, I want to be clear, not necessarily from the Grizzlies, but just from NBA people in general, is one of the things, if they liked Zach, they were attracted to the fact that he hasn't been playing basketball very long, but he got really good at it really quickly and improved every year. How rare is that in your experience to watch somebody go from what he was to what he is in such, relatively speaking, a short amount of time?
Yeah, it's very rare, just from the standpoint of just being an organized basketball, going into his 7th year here, going into his 8th year. I'm not actually sure. It'd be his 8th year because I think he was 3 years, 1 year in Canada and 2 years in IMG, then 4 years at Purdue. So I think it's very rare, when you watched him and you evaluated him, it's a hard call. It's a lot of cargo, right? It's a lot of, it's a big old dude. And now you want to see some numbers before you take somebody. Like you just do. And he didn't have any numbers. He was huge, he was big, he had good hands, he moved well. But at the end of the day, like you want to see somebody get 28 and 14 in a high school game. You want to, you know what I mean? And you just didn't, you weren't going to see that. And when he reclassed and I went in there twice to watch him, he looked really, really good in a workout. And then the game got live and it was it's a pickup game. And he was just kind of out there. But then when I kept going back and watching him work out, I'm like, man, this is like, this can work here. Like he's dominant physically. He just has to get some repetition. He has to get some structure. And that's what he's about. Like his workouts and how he puts in work, like watching film, putting in extra time, just his due diligence. That's what's really made him, on top of his, superior, size.
There was an interview I saw with UConn coach Dan Hurley at some point around the NCAA tournament, and he was asked specifically about Zach Edey, and he just said, listen, this guy is physically overwhelming, so unique, so productive, that if you're an NBA coach and you can't figure out a way to use him, then, you're not thinking long enough about it. I'm sure you've thought about that.
Yes.
How do you envision you clearly cracked the code and realized how to use him at the collegiate level to an incredible degree. How would you use him in the NBA? Because people are skeptical. And I know you love him. The Grizzlies clearly do. Others are skeptical. You're aware of that.
Right. The one thing that he can do at an elite level is rebound the basketball. Like he's going to go after every single rebound. He's a better runner than you think he is. He's a better athlete than you think he is, but he rebounds out of his area. The thing that he had to learn with us was the ability to pass because he was going to demand a double team. So that was a process. He went from a very average passer, probably a below average passer, to a great passer. So you just have to do drill work with him. And I just think from a matchup standpoint, it's going to depend on each team that he goes up against. But if they can't handle the physical presence that he has, I mean, you got to go to the well. And that's tough because, they have a lead guard that has the ball in his hands a lot, and rightfully so. But like you got to, when he has that matchup, the one thing, if they do not want to double, in the NBA, they do not want to come to that. And it's not a post-up league like it used to be, but you just have to utilize him. And if you're taking him 9th, you've thought that through and you are going to utilize him, but you also got to understand the pieces that he's with. If you watch us play, his post-ups, we really worked, especially last year, on posting him up after ball screens. So like now you get that big and he gets detached. You know, if they want to switch some of those things, especially some of those deep Gortats, you know, he's murder in those situations. And now just being able to play off of some of those and putting people in binds, whether they want to switch or they want to play regular ball screen defense, like he's tough in those areas. He is very, very hard to deal with.
I think when the skeptics or the people who are hesitant to believe that he can really work in the NBA, they often point to the stuff on the defensive end of the court that, you know, he's going to have trouble in space. He's going to have trouble with smaller guys. And it's almost like they never even get to the conversation about what you're talking about, the offensive end of the court, where he did in the last game he ever played in college, let's just say, cooked the guy on that end of the court who people were claiming as the best defensive big in this draft and who was taken very high last night as well. Should we have paid more attention to that an elite defensive center couldn't do anything with him in the national championship game?
Yeah, you know, he's just a tough matchup when he gets that deep post, and he works really hard to get that deep post. And, you know, we try to manufacture those post ups and get you to defend certain things, but kind of back Gary to like, his ball screen defense is a lot better than you think it is. And, you know, and I heard Zach speak publicly and he talked about like, and it's good intel that we told him like, you know, not to foul. Well, I tell everybody not to foul. So like, that's like, we have the fewest amount of fouls in the country. Like it's a hell of a concept, right? Don't foul people. But with him, especially, like he has a good point. You know, Zach had a good point. Like, with him especially, then we would double him in the first half. And all I was doing is just protecting the asset, right? You know, I'm just keeping him in the game. And then in the second half, when he doesn't have fouls, you know, we would take that double off. We'd play more one-on-one. You know, we wouldn't tell him to wall up as much and just stay big. We'd say, hey, you know, make sure you're the second jumper, but if they commit early, you know, be more of a shot blocker at that time because, you know, he can do those things. And he's going to be more aggressive defensively. We actually switched and veered off a lot of, you know, different pick and roll stuff. And he was really good at it. You can pull him out and take him. He is much better than you would think. I'm not saying that it's, you know, it's not foolproof, but I watched the playoffs and all those guys struggle against elite guards. So when they say that, I'm like, yeah, no question. I got you. But like, it's just, that's the same for a lot of people. There's very, very few people that's going to handle John Moran in a switch, you know, in a ball screen. I don't care who you are. Like, you're just not. Point guards don't handle him well, you know. And so like now when they put that on him, they say, well, he's going to struggle there. You're like, yeah, sure. You know, everyone struggles with John Wall and Derrick Rose and, you know, John Moran, and, you know, the beat goes on. Chris Paul, you know, those type of things for centers are very, very difficult. But like, he's a way better athlete than you think. He's actually a really good runner, and his stamina is fabulous. He's got the stamina of a guard. You can play him the whole game. We got to the NCAA tournament with those long timeouts, and like, I just didn't feel comfortable taking him out, and his wind was great.
One of the things I heard about him is that, okay, he's a divisive prospect for all the reasons we've discussed, but the teams that liked him and brought him in, this is what I was told. If you liked Zach Edey and you brought him in to work out and just spend time with you,
right,
you liked him more when he left across the board. Is that something that makes sense to you? Yeah,
he's going to crush you. Right. Like he's a workout guy, you know, and he's very, very physical. And it just, you know, it doesn't make sense. If I'm an agent of another big, like, I'm not letting him go in and work out against Zach Edey. There's no way on earth. The thing that he's going to improve in Memphis, you know, besides the basketball team, is the economy. Because I've never seen anybody eat like that. Hey, it's coming. Like, you know, the economy, the restaurants, like, it's, you know, he's a big time player. He's a good dude, but man, I've never seen anybody eat like him.
Well, we got plenty of spots for him. We got barbecue on every corner, so he'll be taken care of. Just a couple more things for you. The other thing is he reportedly shot it well from the perimeter in workouts. You didn't need him to do that at Purdue. I think ideally they would like for him to be able to do that in the NBA. Is the shooting real?
Yeah, you know, he can, you know, he makes his free throws. He's improved his free throws. It's not great. It's good. We always shoot 5-minute threes in practice. He always, you know, every single day is shooting that, and he's got a good shot. He was just such a load. We had the best free throw disparity in the country. So we're not fouling, but we're getting, you know, he got fouled the most out of anybody. So like, we're just trying to wear you down. And the one thing that I would always say about it is, like, we got to help him and work on it in practice and let him shoot. But the one person who's really going to like it if he picks and pops and shoots threes in college is going to be the opposing coach.
That's right.
You know, and so like we're going to get to your backup. I hope to get to the third center too, because third centers stink. And most of the time, second centers in college aren't very good, or they're young and they're not quite ready. But against him, like we would go against some really good players that just had no chance. And so like, let's get him out of the game. Let's get that guy out of the game. Or you would face a lot of teams, Gary, that didn't double. And now they would go into the game and say, okay, we're not going to double. Well, we're going to win then.
Right.
We're going to win. And I know UConn did it, but UConn's so different than everybody. Their perimeter defense is superior, the best perimeter defense I've seen since I've been at Purdue. So I think that piece is really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, they were throwing 5 NBA players in a starting lineup against you. And so you know, they can do things a little differently than other teams were able to do it. Last thing before I let you go, I currently have you projected to win a 3rd straight Big Ten title, even in the absence of the 2-time National Player of the Year, Zach Edey. I know you've been in the gym with your team. I know that you're going to look different, smaller. What do you like what you see so far?
Yeah, good guys, and we have some good young players that are coming in that we need to help us. But we have a lot of returners, even though we lose Zach and Mason Gillis, Ethan Morton. We still have some really good returners: Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Wren. We got some other experienced guys coming back also, and then the young guys coming. So yeah, we're excited, man. We have 6'11", 7'2", and 7'3" still. So like we will make sure everybody knows that we still got some good size. You know, Caleb First, Trey Kaufman-Wren have a lot of experience. Cam Heide, Miles Colvin. The beat goes on along with our 5 freshmen coming in. So, you know, we're excited about it. We've stayed the route of, recruiting high school guys. We've only taken 2 guys out of the portal in 4 years. And so I think from a development standpoint, our staff's done a really good job.
That is Matt Painter, 5-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. He was in the national championship game back in April. He's the man who recruited and signed and developed the 9th pick in the 2024 NBA draft. Memphis Grizzlies center Zach Edey. Matt, it's always good to talk to you. I appreciate your time. Can't wait to see you on the road next month, and let me know when you get down here to Memphis for a game.
All right, man. Thanks, Gary.
All right, take care. That's Matt Painter,
right, see you.
Purdue coach, a 5-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. Really appreciate Matt being here, the man who recruited and signed and developed Zach Edey, who presumably will be the new starting center of your Memphis Grizzlies. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to other aspects of the draft. As expected, Zachary Ricochet went #1 overall to the Atlanta Hawks. Dalton Knecht surprisingly fell all the way to 17. He's now a Los Angeles Laker. We'll pop around other parts of the draft. We'll do that next. It's the Gary Parrish Show, presented by Ortho South.
Shall we talk about our favorite NBA Finals MVPs? Number 3 is a little bit of Canadian history because it's the first and only NBA championship that the country as a whole has. I'm going to go with Kawhi Leonard's 2nd Finals MVP. I still get my little heart warm even thinking about it, and I was there watching every game. IMHO with Lang Whitaker and me, Kelsey Wright Johnson, on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
If you look at it as far as the number 9 pick over the years, there's been some pretty good players that have surfaced at number 9. Of course, Dirk Nowitzki, who won a championship. There's been a lot of great guys, but who knows if there is a great guy in this draft.
Hey, Grizzlies fans, be sure to tune in to Grizzbeat, where the panel and I break down all things Grizzlies and take a look at the rest of the NBA as well. The show is live every Wednesday, 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
What is going on? What is it? Which one? What color was it?
With speckles.
Yeah, that's vomit. That's vomit. Yeah, that is the worst one. The vomit is the worst one. I'd like to remind everybody that this is her idea. She wanted to do this.
Tune in to the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt live every weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Hey Grizzlies fans, turn your stadium excitement into betting action at Southland Casino Hotel. As a proud sponsor of the Memphis Grizzlies, Southland brings you more gaming action than ever before. Step onto our massive casino floor stretching more than 2.5 football fields. Slot enthusiasts can enjoy more than 2,300 machines from penny slots to high limits and play the hottest games like Aristocrat, Dollar Storm, Cloverlink, and Lightning Cash. Table game aficionados can feel the thrill of the felt with 50 live table games. From 3-card to blackjack match, we're ready to deal you in. Plus, don't miss stadium gaming for an interactive digital experience. And for high rollers, our high limit room is calling your name. Go big on 6 high limit blackjack tables or spin one of our 54 high stakes slot machines. Throw in 8 delicious dining options and a 300-room high-rise hotel, and there's plenty to keep you going. At Southland Casino Hotel, the gaming excitement never stops.
Must be 21 plus. Play responsibly. For help quitting, call 800-522-4700.
LifeCare Ambulance is proud to be an official partner of the Memphis Grizzlies and FedEx Forum. At LifeCare, they wear their hearts with pride. Their passion is their people. They want you to love what you do and where you do it. Their employee-driven culture encourages a healthy work-life balance and supportive work environment. They invest in your success and well-being so that you can provide the best care for the patients that they serve. Join the incredible team of EMTs and paramedics in Memphis, Nashville, and across the nation today. Learn more at lifecareamb.com.
Orthopedic injuries can be unpredictable, unforeseen, and unscheduled, and Ortho South understands this better than anyone. Since your injuries don't make appointments, you don't need to either, and that's because Ortho South welcomes walk-ins during the weekdays and the evenings, and even on Saturdays. So next time an unforeseen injury makes an unscheduled appearance in your life, visit orthosouth.org to find your nearest care location. Just walk in, and Ortho South will take care of everything, especially you. Learn more at orthosouth.org. That's orthosouth at orthosouth.org. Big Bet Bennett, before we get to 5 more things, a lot of interesting stuff from that conversation I had with Matt Painter. Among the most interesting was right at the top. He said still to this moment, he has never spoken to anybody from the Memphis Grizzlies front office about Zach Edey, the young man that they used the 9th pick in the draft on last night. Does that surprise you?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit. I think it just goes to show the Grizzlies had some conviction about Zach Edey. The fact that they didn't even need to, you know?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's good or bad, whether it matters or not. I do believe it's unusual. I think even Matt suggested it has happened to him before. Like he's had a player get selected by a team and he had never talked to that team before. But it's the exception more than the rule. So I'd be interested to understanding the logic behind that. Just what if you are interested in Zach Edey? And again, you go back to the combine. Zach Edey says, I know the Grizzlies are interested in me. So there had been real interest to some degree for a long time. I would be interested in understanding the logic behind you don't want to talk to the college coach who recruited him, signed him, enrolled him, developed him into a 2-time National Player of the Year, because it just runs so counter to the way I know some other franchises do things. For instance, I think this is right. I remember hearing stories about Brad Stevens literally getting on the phone with the principal at Jason Tatum's high school. So this is like Jason Tatum ain't been to this place in at least 2 years because, you know, he just spent the last year at Duke. And still, and not only did Brad Stevens want to talk to Mike Krzyzewski and John Shire and, you know, various other people connected to Jason Tatum, it went so far that he was, you know, calling principal offices and talking to people about their experiences with Jason Tatum. So to hear that Matt Painter say, hey, I still haven't talked to the general manager or anybody in the Grizzlies front office specifically about Zach Edey, just surprising. I don't know whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, but I don't think that's the way they normally do it. So that was the interesting, most interesting thing or surprising thing I heard from Matt Painter. But either way, I appreciate his time. You can imagine when you have a top 10 pick, you get pulled a lot of different directions. So he didn't have to carve out 15 minutes for it. I appreciate him doing that. Let's move on. 5 more things you need to know.
Number 1.
Zachary Ricochet, as expected, was the number 1 pick in the 2024 NBA draft last night. I didn't even remember this, but 370 days earlier, I had posted my first mock for the 2024 NBA draft. You know who I had going number 1?
Did you have Zachary Ricochet?
I did. And you know what?
I suck at saying that. Ricochet. I was struggling last night on the damn draft show.
You're going to hear it slightly differently depending on who's saying it, accents, all that. But my best attempt is Zachary Ricochet.
Ricochet.
I had him going.
Say that. Ricochet.
Yeah. Well, Ben, you know what? He's a 3-and-D wing for the Atlanta Hawks. There's a good chance you'll never have to say it again.
Okay.
Right? You might not ever have to say it again. So he goes number 1. 370 days earlier, I had him projected to go number 1. I didn't even remember it. One of my editors found it and tweeted it last night. So what that means is that I liked Zachary Ricochet as the number 1 pick in the draft a lot more 370 days before the draft than I did on the day of the draft. I did the Eye on College Basketball podcast late last night. I think we wrapped it up around 1:30 here on the East Coast. And among the things Matt Norlander, my colleague, asked me was, when you look back on this pick, will the Atlanta Hawks regret it? Will they look back on it and go, well, we didn't get it right? And I think the answer is yes. Now, to be clear, outside of a Wembanyama draft or Anthony Davis draft, there's a decent chance there's somebody picked outside of the top spot is going to emerge as the best player. And then by definition, you can always say you got that wrong because you didn't take the best player. So that's sort of a trap to begin with. But I do think Atlanta ended up in this spot for reasons that they will regret going forward. Most people believed Alex Sarr, who went second to Washington, for much of the past year had been considered the number 1 prospect in this draft. He was the favorite in the betting markets as recently as 2 weeks ago to be the number 1 pick in the draft. But he refused to visit with Atlanta, to work out with Atlanta, and they clearly just weren't comfortable picking him under those circumstances. So that takes the perceived best prospect in the draft off the board, at least from Atlanta's perspective. Matt Norlander reported last night that ultimately it came down to Ricochet and Reed Sheppard. That's what Atlanta was picking between, Ricochet and Reed Sheppard. And that there were some people in Atlanta's front office who were scared. It was not a consensus in the front office in Atlanta, according to Matt Norlander. And he says there's some members of the front office who were worried we might be passing. What if we're passing on the Patrick Mahomes of the NBA? Like, what if we are? And I swear to God, when I heard that, I was like, if you have somebody in your front office who thinks Reed Sheppard might really be Patrick Mahomes of the NBA, and the consensus on Ricochet is that he could be a good 3-and-D wing. Like, I've never heard anybody describe Zachary Ricochet as a possible future face of a franchise. They just act like he's a piece. And then in the exact same front office that's getting ready to pull the trigger on him, you got somebody, according to Norlander, saying, are we sure we're not passing on something special like Steph Curry in Reed Sheppard? And if you are having those types of thoughts, that's probably the direction you should go.
Yeah.
Because when you are an Eastern Conference franchise going nowhere, you need to be taking big swings, not safe picks with the number 1 selection. And I know that Atlanta never expected to be in this spot because they weren't expected to win the lottery. It was improbable. But once they did it, I really do think it's not as simple as just blow it up because San Antonio has all their picks, right? So you can't just blow it up, but you can go in a different direction. I think once I get the number 1 pick in this draft and Alex Sarr has no interest in being with me, and this whole Trae Young thing just isn't working the way I'd like for it to work. He doesn't seem to be a great teammate, doesn't seem to be a great leader, terrible on the defensive end of the court. And he can make shots from all over the court, and he get you a 40-pointer every once in a while. But where are we really going with this guy as the face of our thing? It looks like maybe nowhere. I really do believe I would have at that point said, all right, let's do the best deal we can do for Trae Young, get him out of here, take Reed Sheppard with the number 1 pick, and start building around him and whatever else we got that we like. But I think I would have pivoted from the Trae Young era to the Reed Sheppard era if I really do believe that Reed Sheppard is the best prospect in this draft. And I personally do believe that Reed Sheppard was the best prospect in this draft. So I think they're going to regret this. Like, Ricochet could turn into a really nice player, and I guess I should be open-minded. He could turn into the best player from this draft. But even people in Atlanta don't seem to think that he was clearly the best prospect in this draft. And I don't know how you spend the number 1 pick on somebody even you in your own front office would describe that way.
Number 2.
Among the surprises from last night, in addition to Zach Edey going in the top 10, was Dalton Knecht falling out of it. Just about everybody had him mocked in the top 10, some as high as the top 5. He didn't come off the board till 17th to the Los Angeles Lakers. What was the rumbling about at Southland when we're watching Dalton Knecht, a player who played in the state at Tennessee, starred in the SEC Conference Player of the Year, projected by many to end up with the Grizzlies and the 9th pick throughout the pre-draft process. What did it sound like at Southland when you're watching him slip, slide all the way down to 17?
I mean, I think everybody was surprised by it, and it was kind of like leading up to the draft, the day or two before. It did look like he was slipping in a lot of people's mock drafts, but I don't think anybody thought he was going to fall all the way to 17 at the Lakers. I thought he was still very much going to be at least a top 10, 11 pick.
If you would have told me you can only pick one of these things is true. You got to pick which one's true, and I'll give you a bunch of money. It'll be a successful bet. I can tell you one of these things is true. They're obviously not both true. One's true. Which one's true? Dalton Knecht picked in the top 10 or Dalton Knecht picked outside of the top 15? I would have said we've got to be inside the top 10 then, because there's no way he's slipping outside of the top 15. I mean, we're talking about the reigning SEC Player of the Year, 6'6" guard who can bounce it, elite shooter, a high-volume shooter, broad shoulders, high release. Like, I've had NBA people in advance of last night tell me they believe Dalton Knecht will be the best rookie offensive player from this draft, a real candidate to be Rookie of the Year. I know some people who think that in 5 years you look up and Dalton Knecht will be the best player from this draft. And for some people to hold that opinion and then watch him go 17th, surprising. And I'm sure it was disappointing for him. It did cost him a lot of money. Like on the rookie scale, where your pick dictates what your salary is. And he's going to make he's going to make less money next year than he otherwise would have made. He's going to make less money in his second year than he otherwise would have made. But I really do think when he looks up, like, he's also going to be coming off the bench, presumably, for the Los Angeles Lakers, playing with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I know you'd rather go 7th than 17th, but you're going to look up and find yourself in a pretty good spot. I bet J.J. Redick is thrilled with this. I bet LeBron and AD are happy with this because, and we'll get to franchises that took a different approach in similar situations in a minute, but Dalton Knecht's age is something that works against him. It's probably among the reasons he slipped to 17th in the draft. He is an old prospect by any sort of normal standard. But if you're the Lakers, why do you care about that? What is the only thing that's important right now, or the main thing of importance right now? Maximizing the final years of LeBron James' good stuff, right? LeBron James is still a top 15 player in the world. He was All-NBA once again this past season. LeBron James is still one of the best players in the world. So if your options are take a 19-year-old who needs time to develop or a much older prospect who looks like they're plug and play, and, oh, by the way, they add shooting, which is what you always want on the court with LeBron and AD, like, why wouldn't you be thrilled with this? So I know it was probably awkward and uncomfortable for Dalton Knecht to have to sit through that last night. You know, when you wake up and you think you're going in the top 10 and all of a sudden you're outside of the top 15, that's not a fun experience. Those cameras, I bet they get real uncomfortable pointed at you. But I also bet he either last night jumped a plane to L.A. or this morning hopped on a plane to L.A. and now he's starting to realize, my God, 3 years ago I was in junior college, and now I was just a first-round pick of the Los Angeles Lakers. And he wasn't in junior college because of grades or anything like that. Keep in mind, coming out of high school, nobody thought Dalton Knecht was good enough to be a Division I men's basketball player. Then he was great at junior college. Nobody thought he was, or very few people thought he was good enough to be a high major player. That's why he went to a mid-major. Then he was awesome there, and he went to Tennessee, and you assume he'll be good, but not the SEC Player of the Year. So he's been proving people wrong consistently for a while now. And if I were betting, I'd bet that he proves franchises wrong about how they handled the opening night of the 2024 NBA draft. I'm not saying he should have gone number 1 or number 2 or number 3, but I do believe Dalton Knecht should have gone higher than 17.
Number 3.
San Antonio Spurs did not execute both of their top 8 picks. They used the 4th. They traded the 8th, and they used the 4th on Stefan Castle from UConn, which means Stefan Castle and Donovan Clingan, two stars of UConn's second straight national championship team, both went in the top 7 of last night's draft. There's some thought, because Castle is an interesting prospect and some people's favorite. Most people believe the ideal way to build around Victor Wembanyama is just surround him with shooters and just play 5 out and have nothing but shooters on the court with him, he himself being a shooter. Well, Stephon Castle is a lot of things and a lot of great things, but he's not a shooter. And one of the things that there were whispers about last night is that the whole nobody moving up into the top 3, nobody moving to 3 to take Donovan Clingan screwed up what the Spurs had in mind. In other words, every franchise, you go through a draft like this, unless you're picking first, you better have contingency plans, because you don't know what the people in front of you, you can't be certain of what they're going to do. So every franchise says, okay, if we're picking 4th and these 3 are off the board, this is what we'll do. And if these 3 are off the board, then this is what we'll do. And if these 3 are off the board, then this is what we'll do. And we might trade down, we might try to trade up, but you've got contingency plans for everything, so you're not on the clock trying to figure out what you're going to do. You've already discussed the situation a million times. And there's some thought, and again, this is one of those things that they'll never say it out loud. You'll never know the truth. But there's some thought that the Spurs were operating under the impression that somebody is going to come up to 3 and take Donovan Clingan. And so if the first 3 off the board are Ricochet, Sarr, Clingan, for whoever wants to come up and get him, then Reed Shepherd is sitting there at 4. We'll stay at 4. We'll take Reed Shepherd. And then we've got not only shooting added to our roster, but we've got the best shooter in this draft added to our roster, and the prospect some people believe is going to be the best prospect from this draft on our roster. It doesn't go down like that. Nobody comes up to get Clingan, so the Rockets, not wanting to take a center, decide we'll take Reed Shepherd. He's off the board, and the Spurs have to go to a contingency plan, the contingency plan being, I guess we'll just take Stephon Castle. You buy that? I think there's maybe some truth to that.
I think there's maybe some truth to that, too. I posed the question last night to Fish and Lang, who, if you had to pick someone right now that you thought was going to be an all-star, like the first player out of this draft to be an all-star, and that was my pick, was Stephon Castle, just because Spurs.
He could be. The issue, or at least the reason some people don't love the pick, is because he's a non-shooter. Like, if you spend weeks saying you got to build around Wembanyama with shooters, and then to use the 4th pick on a non-shooter, it runs counter to what most people think you ought to be doing. But the other side of that is, okay, he's a non-shooter now, but we watched him make shots in the national championship game in the Final Four. He's a non-shooter now, but that franchise, I was sitting with Avery Johnson.
Guys,
I was sitting with Avery Johnson last night. Avery Johnson's number 6 is hanging in the rafters in San Antonio. And one of the things he'll tell you is that franchise has a history of actually developing players and turning non-shooters into shooters. Kawhi Leonard wasn't a shooter coming out of college. He developed into a reliable one, first in San Antonio before moving on to Toronto and then the Clippers. So, yeah, he's a non-shooter now, but he can become a shooter. And then everything else that you love about a prospect is there. All right? First off, let's talk about the basketball stuff. 6'6" lockdown perimeter defender, enthusiastically takes on the other team's most difficult perimeter assignment, right? And also, even though he was a McDonald's All-American and a 5-star prospect and a projected top 10 pick more than a year ago, I think this is important. He was happy just being a role player at UConn. He was not the star of that team. Tristan Newton was the star of the team. Donovan Clingan was probably the face of the team. Stephon Castle was a McDonald's All-American, top 10 projected draft pick who said, Coach, I'm here. What do you need me to do? Well, I know you're the most decorated guy we got in our program, the highest rated guy we got in our program, but we don't really need you leading us in shots per game, points per game, any of that kind of stuff. Okay, Coach, what do you need from me? I need you to take on the other team's best perimeter player, accept that assignment, shut him down, and just impact winning. Be a good team player. You got it, Coach. I'm here for that. No attitude, no ego. Think about this. If you're getting ready to join the San Antonio franchise, like sometimes you're a top 5 pick, people are expecting you to maybe be the face of the franchise. If you're going to join the San Antonio franchise, you know what you are never expected to be? The face of it. You know why? They already got that guy. His name's Victor Wembanyama. You are, if this thing goes well, you know what you're supposed to be? Scottie Pippen to Michael Jordan. If this thing goes well, you're supposed to be the other guy on a dynasty with one of the all-time greats. All right? Well, he just proved he's comfortable being the other guy. He went to UConn with all these accolades and said just, hey, I'm here. What do I need to impact winning? That's what I'll do. So that's great stuff. Just the mindset, the approach is the right thing. And then, though there are questions about the shooting, on the defensive end, think about this. You're playing the Spurs. Your best perimeter player, they can throw Stephon Castle on him. All right? Maybe not as a rookie because this can be tough, but like he projects as a shutdown perimeter defender with good positional size. All right? That's who you got at the point of attack. And then behind him, you've got a guy who looks like he might go down as the greatest defensive player ever. All right? Who could set the record for Defensive Player of the Year awards. That's who you got standing behind him. All right? So good luck. Maybe he never develops into a shooter, but he's going to be able to do enough on the defensive end of the court and just as a ball mover on the offensive end of the court to make this not be a disaster. Even if he doesn't develop the shot, there's a lot of good stuff here to like. And, oh, by the way, there's some thought that he could be a point guard with great positional size. Just because you say you want to play point guard in the NBA doesn't mean that you will. He played small forward at UConn. He was not their point guard. So I know they got a lot of attention in the pre-draft process. Stephon Castle says he can be a point guard in the NBA. Well, like, watch this. You ready? I can be a point guard in the NBA. Like Gary Parrish just said he could be a point guard in the NBA. Easy to say something, a little harder to go do it. I'm not sold on that completely, but, like, if you get the best version of Stephon Castle, 6'6", combo guard who can play the point and make shots and then lock down your best perimeter defender, now we're talking. I don't know if we'll get there, but I understand the logic behind it.
Number 4.
What I don't understand is the logic behind what the Milwaukee Bucks did with the 23rd pick last night, because they took A.J. Johnson, a 6'5" guard who, yes, is from the United States, but spent the past year playing professionally in Australia, where he averaged 2 points per game. I said this last night. If you are Giannis Antetokounmpo and you're just sort of looking around at everything that's happening in the NBA, and you have previously made it clear publicly, I don't want to leave Milwaukee, but I do want to always feel like I have a chance to win a championship and that my franchise is doing everything they can do to put me in a position to win a championship. And if that ever changes, then I'll have to take an honest approach, an honest look at that. Like, he's on record saying that, and there's some thought that that is what motivated them to go out and get Damian Lillard. Like, here, we got you another star. Please be happy. So, as you know, this past season in Milwaukee didn't go well. They had to fire their coach mid-season. Giannis got hurt. They got eliminated early. It wasn't great. You just watch Boston finally break through in the East, win a championship. They're bringing, if not the whole team back, most of it. Then you watch them add Baylor Shireman last night. 7 picks below where your franchise picked. And Baylor Shireman is a lot of things, among them an older guard with size who shot great percentages from three-point range each of the past 2 years at Creighton. Baylor Shireman can help an NBA team win next season, all right? So you just watch the Celtics win a championship and then add that guy. Meantime, the New York Knicks, they just went out and added Mikal Bridges. They got better. There's reports that they are re-signing OG Anunoby to a big contract. That's a good development. They might lose, a starting center, but the Knicks on paper are better right now than they were last year. If you're Giannis, you're looking at that. You're also looking at Philadelphia, a Philadelphia franchise that added shooting that can help last night in the draft and that has a lot of cap space they're going to be able to spend on a big-time free agent. You're about to watch them get better. And then your franchise goes out and drafts a 19-year-old who averaged 2 points in Australia this year. Are you furious?
Yes.
Why are the
it
Knicks
was a
doing
pretty
things
baffling pick. Yeah.
Why are the Knicks doing things to make Jalen Brunson's job easier next year? And the Celtics are doing things to make Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's job easier next year. And the Sixers are about to do things to make Joel Embiid's job easier next year. And you did nothing with this pick to make my job easier next year. It's a lot like Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love. Like Green Bay, you've got a first-round pick again. I'm, here trying to win Super Bowls. Draft somebody who can help me do that, not somebody who literally has no chance of helping me win a Super Bowl because if I'm on the field, he's on the bench.
I didn't even think about that. They must hate drafts in Milwaukee.
Well, yeah, okay. So, but this was Aaron Rodgers. I don't have to agree with everything Aaron Rodgers thinks or does or says to agree with him on that. You said I'm the franchise quarterback. You said we're trying to take this thing to another Super Bowl, and then I watched you go out and use a first-round pick on the guy you want to replace me someday, the guy who can't help me win next year, a punter. Use a first-round pick on a punter, and that could help theoretically at least give me a better chance to win next year, right? A backup quarterback doesn't help me. Why did you do that? I understood. This last night, A.J. Johnson might turn into one of the best 10 prospects from this draft. I have no opinion on that. My opinion is strictly this. There ain't no way he's going to be helpful next year.
Yeah, it's not going to be on Giannis's timeline.
It's not going to be on – it won't be before Giannis gets frustrated and says, get me out of here. By the time that happens, if that happens, A.J. Johnson, you still won't know what he's going to be. He averaged 2 points in Australia this year. You really think he's playing a meaningful role for an Eastern Conference contender next season? Come on.
Doubtful.
So that's – if I'm Milwaukee, I'm furious. Like Milwaukee, the Lakers, Minnesota, Denver, most of these franchises that feel like they're ready to compete and contend next season, they took players who can theoretically help them do that. Boston, they took players last night who can theoretically help them be better next season. And then Milwaukee is one of the few franchises that considers itself a contender, but didn't do anything last night to actually help it contend next season. If I'm Giannis, I'm furious. We'll see what they do in the second round.
Number 5.
And speaking of the second round, I don't know if you got any interest in a Kyle Filipowski, but if you do, he's still sitting there. That's a shocker. Kyle Filipowski didn't get selected with any of the first 30 picks. You surprised by that? I was surprised by that.
I am surprised. I mean, I said today on JB's show, that is someone that if he's there at 39 for the Grizzlies, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like that's a team. Zach Kleiman even kind of mentioned a couple weeks back wanting to add multiple bigs to this roster. And now I think they'll probably do something in free agency to address that. But I'd be interested at 39 for sure. I don't know if he falls that far, though.
I don't know if I want to add 2 rookie centers, but I'm open-minded about it. We'll see what happens. By the way, the draft starts early today, 3 o'clock Central, because of the presidential debate tonight.
I actually love that. I mean, it's weird, but I'm excited to watch it.
I got to go back to the studio and talk about it.
Yeah. Well, that'll be good. Your night's over early, man.
It went over early last night.
No.
Buddy, I was not a fan of breaking the draft up into 2 nights. But I tell you, by the time we got to about pick 25 last night, I was like, thank God we don't have to do 30 more picks tonight. Because we had to do a whole recap show, and then I did an hour podcast on the Ion College Basketball podcast. So it was a late night last night. Got to go back today, and it'll be all Bronny James conversations today. When will Bronny get picked? Will somebody take him before the Lakers? What if the Lakers passed on him? I mean, it's Bronny James Day today.
Yes.
So
the answer is yes, I think, by the way.
You think somebody will take him before the Lakers?
Yeah, where are they, 55?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think somebody will take him before then.
If they do it, it's just out of spite. It's just to cause problems. I would not endorse that if I worked for an NBA franchise. I would say we don't need to be in the Bronny James business. It ain't worth the trouble, right? I mean, you told me LeBron's coming. I'll listen to that. But if we just assume LeBron's in LA and Bronny's wherever, let LA take him. Don't get in the way of that. You don't need to be involved in this on some level circus and distraction. So my guess, we'll see what happens as the picks start rolling off the night. My guess is that Bronny's going to be available at 55. The Lakers will take him. And to your point about Filipowski, I know there's contingency plans for every franchise, but I bet you there were franchises picking in the bottom of the first round, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, that just didn't expect Filipowski to be available there, and they might not have done their homework, so to speak, on him and just weren't comfortable pulling the trigger if they didn't feel like they had a proper evaluation in place. But one of the advantages for franchises with there now being a big gap between picks 30 and 31. Like used to, we'd have just a few minutes between picks 30 and 31. And then a few minutes later, come 32. A few minutes later, 33. Now everybody gets to take a deep breath. And I bet you there were franchises last night going, okay, Filipowski's available. What do we have on him? Do we want to move up? Can we move up? Who's a seller? Can we buy a pick? Can we trade? Like, I bet you somebody's going to move up to get him. I bet you either somebody picking very early in the first round will eagerly select them, or somebody who believes in him will move up and feel like they're getting real value in the 30s with a guy who was at one point projected to be a lottery pick. I asked around a little bit last night. There's not any great, clear answers about why this happened. Like with Tyler Kolek also slipping to the second round. Well, I heard this. He's just a traditional point guard. Like, it's not even like, yeah, he's a point guard, but like that's all he is. He's a little traditional point guard, and there's a hip issue that teams are concerned about. So you ask, man, why did Tyler Kolek slip to the second round? I just told you why. You ask the same question about Filipowski, and it's just like, some teams just didn't like him, and they're concerned about his defensive ability. He is considered a 6'11" big who can really shoot it. But as I had multiple NBA people point out to me, they're like, okay, he can really shoot it, but show it to me. I mean, it looks good, I guess. But as a freshman at Duke, he took 3.4 three-pointers a game and made 28% of them. Is he a shooter? And in his second year at Duke, he shot it a little better, 34.8%, and that is respectable. But he took fewer threes a game, only 3.1. So his shot attempts went up, but his three-point attempts went down. He was doing more work inside the paint. So is he really a stretch big? I mean, I know you can send him out there, and they got to guard him, but what's he going to shoot from three when you back him up a little bit? And, what's he going to shoot from three in the NBA? I can tell you he's never shot better than 34.8% in college, and he's never really been a high-volume guy in college either. You combine that with the questions about what he is on defense, that's how you slide to the second round. But I would have used a first-round pick on him. I probably would have used a top 20 pick on him. I think he's going to be in the NBA for a long time because I actually do believe in the shooting. I understand that the statistics don't highlight him as a knockdown three-point shooter, but there's a long list of guys who showed a real ability to shoot it, even if the statistics weren't great in college. And then as they get older in the NBA, they become much more reliable from the three-point line. That's what I believe Filipowski will be. I don't think it was smart to let him slide to the second round. Somebody's going to regret not taking him. But, there were 30 picks, and nobody wanted him. So there's something there that is obviously a real concern. Prediction, he goes off the board in the 30s a little later on today. As always, we'll see. Be back. GP's Carryout.
Mike did his favorite black films of all time. Mike, where we at?
If there's one movie I know every single line to, it is Coming to America.
There we go.
It is Coming to America. It can come on any time of any day, and I'm going to stop and watch at least 20 minutes of it.
Get all of your HBCU sports and culture news by tuning in to HBCU Huddle with CJ Hurt and Mike Wallace. New episodes drop every Thursday on grindcitymedia.com, YouTube, and Spotify.
I think we have the college basketball title futures. UConn's number one.
I really like Houston. I'd have them winning it all, but you can't be giving Drake jerseys. What is wrong with you?
Maybe the Drake curse is stronger in college basketball.
How long has he been riding with Kentucky?
He wore an Alabama jersey and Saban retired.
The Odds Couple with Rob Fisher, Lang Whitaker, John Roser, and CJ Hurt live Thursdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
There's no substitute for experience, the knowledge gained from having been there before, and the passion to share what you know to make everyone around you better. It's true in basketball. It's true in banking. Grizzlies checking from Pinnacle. Play hard. Bank easy.
Open a Grizzlies checking account with at least $100 and a recurring direct deposit by August 31st, and you could receive a $200 direct deposit bonus into your account. Details at grizzliesbanking.com. Member FDIC.
Let's face it, there's a lot of trash talk in basketball, but the great teams let their performance do the talking. Like Ford F-150 with Pro Power on board, a class-exclusive industry-first feature that turns your truck into a mobile generator and leaves the competition speechless. Ford F-150, official truck of the Grizzlies. Greatness starts here at your Mid-South Ford dealer. Class is full-size pickups under 8,500 pounds, GVWR.
Welcome back. Gary Parrish Show presented by Ortho South. I'm in Stamford, Connecticut. I got CBS Sports HQ duties a little later on today for the second round of the NBA draft. Big Bet Bennett back in Memphis inside the Built Ford Tough studio. Let's wrap it up with GP's Carryout.
It's time for GP's Carryout. One final segment filled with stuff to take with you. It's not everything you need to know, but it's most of it. What did we learn today?
Whole bunch of stuff, but we mostly focused on the NBA draft because the first round went down last night, and the Memphis Grizzlies, your Memphis Grizzlies, they sat there right at 9, and they used the 9th pick in the 2024 NBA draft on two-time National Player of the Year, Purdue legend Zach Edey. I had Purdue coach Matt Painter on earlier in the show. Appreciated him doing that, and I thought among the more surprising things that he said is that, because the way I asked it was, hey, I know that we had an indication as Memphians that the Grizzlies were interested in Zach Edey because he verbalized that at the Combine. I don't know that he was supposed to say that out loud, but he was like, I know the Grizzlies are interested in me or like me or something along the lines. I asked Matt, when did you know the Grizzlies were really interested in using the top 10 pick on Zach Edey? And he said, I didn't. I never talked to them. And that was surprising to me just because it runs counter to my understanding of the way these things typically work. Most front offices talk to too many people as opposed to not the college coach. And so I don't want to say I've never heard anything like that before, but I do believe that's less common than, say, the alternative. And I've seen the chat chiming in on it a little bit. Like I said earlier, I don't know whether it's a right thing or a wrong thing, a good thing or a bad thing. I just believe it's an unusual thing to use a top 10 pick on a college player without talking to their college coach at all. That just seemed like I told you, Brad Stevens, I remember talking to Jason Tatum's high school principal. Given that as a baseline, you would assume the Grizzlies would have talked to Matt Painter. So I see the chat, wondering about that the same way we wondered about that. One theory floated in the chat, and I this is the type of thing that I guess could make some sense. If you spend too much time or any time talking to Matt Painter, letting him know in a conversation, or at least giving him signs in a conversation that you're genuinely interested in him, then the next franchise that calls him to talk about Zach Edey and the next franchise that calls to talk about Zach Edey, and they always ask questions like, so who else have you talked to? Where do you think his range is? And then he says something like, I was on the phone with Zach Kleiman with the Grizzlies for 2 hours last night. And, who knows? Everything I'm reading says they're looking to move up to draft Donovan Clingan. But, if they're not really interested in Zach at 9, I don't know why they're talking to me for 2 hours. And then that information gets around the league, and maybe there's somebody else who thinks, hey, we don't have to go up to 9 to get Zach Edey because the Grizzlies aren't taking him. They're moving up to go get Donovan Clingan. So we don't have to get up in front of the Grizzlies to get Zach Edey. We can just let him fall to us at 12 or 14 or 16 or whatever, right? So maybe that's the logic behind it. I don't know. This is all speculative. But that was the most surprising thing I heard from Matt Painter in our conversation, that he never talked to the Grizzlies about Zach Edey. So if you missed the conversation, you can find it. Really appreciate Matt's time. And now we look forward to the Zach Edey introductory press conference. Do we have a time on that yet, Bennett?
I don't think so. I would assume, though, that it's going to be after the second round because they typically bring them all in together, right? Like if they draft guys today. Yeah.
That's
so
right. Well,
tomorrow probably.
Okay, so this is just where the new thing screws me up. Typically, the draft is on a Thursday. You bring your draft picks in on a Friday morning.
Yeah.
Well, because it's a 2-night draft now or 2-day draft, yeah, you're probably right. They probably still bring everybody in on Friday together. So I would assume maybe Friday we get the introductory press conference.
Yeah, Kyra said probably later in the day on Friday.
Later in the day on Friday. All right. Shouts to Kyra for keeping us on track. So Zach Edey will be here at some point, and any of these questions we have, we'll be able to ask them straight to him. Looking forward to that.
What's today's biggest game?
I'm taking you to the WNBA Prime Video.
Okay.
It's the Indiana Fever against the Seattle Storm. We're doing it in Climate Pledge Arena. The Storm enter with a 10-6 record. The Fever been playing better after starting 0-5. They're now 7-11. That means they're 7-6 in their past 13 games. Caitlin Clark, of course, the star. Seattle, 9.5-point favorite tonight at home. The total is 167.5. Big Ben Bennett, you're trying to get you, I believe, a 2-game winning streak going. You won with the Braves yesterday. You're now 126, 130, and 4. Negative 18.2 units. It ain't great. We ain't getting rich. We ain't getting rich doing this.
Buddy, I didn't get rich last night.
What was your problem last night?
I mean, I had a great time at Southland, but my wallet didn't.
What's your game of choice at the casino?
Oh, you know what? So I like to switch it up a little bit, but last night, Kelsey and her friend Kayla were playing I've never done this before, the video craps table where there's the camera on the dice, and I've never done that one. And that was pretty fun. I was playing that for a little bit.
Okay. So
and did okay on that. And then it went south when I tried.
You need me to Venmo you? I mean, you
ventures.
got everything covered. This ain't one of those deals where I know your electricity's always getting cut off. I don't want it to be because you couldn't pay your bill. You need some help. You need me to help you?
I think I'll be okay. I mean, I had just I'm a little responsible when I go to the casinos. I just had a little wad of cash and said that's I don't go to the ATM. I come with the cash and never touch the ATM at the casino.
I don't the last time I went to Vegas for New Year's, I don't think I gambled at all. I don't really gamble. I mean, I don't gamble in a casino setting anymore. I find it boring. I just don't I don't have a good time sitting at a blackjack table. If my friends text me and say, "Hey, you want to go play blackjack?" I just act like my phone's dead. I don't want to go to the casino. That's probably not the best thing to be saying, given advertising and stuff. Let me rephrase. Can I just start that all over? Casinos are awesome. All right. And man, oh buddy, can you have a great time there? You should go, particularly to Southland. But
Southland's the glow up of Southland.
It's so amazing.
Man.
I mean, I remember I used to go there and just watch dogs run around, and now look at that place.
I know, dude. It's like freaking Vegas.
It's basically Las Vegas, just across the Mississippi River. I mean, this used to happen in Tunica all the time. When Tunica was at its peak, you'd see people sometimes, and they'd be like, "You been down to Tunica lately?" And I'd say, "Yeah, maybe I have, or maybe I hadn't, whatever." And they say, "Man, my God, it looks just like Las Vegas." And you'd be like, "All right, calm down. No, it doesn't look like Las Vegas. It looks like Tunica with some, nice hotels. That's what it looks like. Relax a little bit." Southland, hey, still not quite looking like Vegas, but I tell you what, I just drove to Texas. We drove right past it on the way. And I my boys asked me, they said, "Dad, what is that?" And I said, "That's where I grew up. I grew up watching dogs run around in circles." That's what I told them.
Shout out to Rusty.
Man, here comes Rusty. So I don't gamble in any sort of tradition, not like I used to. All right. But when I used to, you know what I would do? I had a rule. I'd be in Las Vegas. You know what I'd do? I'd take a certain amount of money, whatever that is, whatever I'm comfortable losing tonight. And mentally, I already decide, all right, this is money flushed down the toilet, or this is money spent on an experience. I'm going out to have fun tonight, and I'm not going to assume I'm going to have any of this money tomorrow. All right. But what I'm also not going to do is take any credit card with me, and I'm not going to take any ATM card with me, because I know myself. If I lose all this money quickly and I don't want the night to be over, then I'll do what I got to do to keep the night going, and that's go back to the ATM. But what I also know about myself is that if I have to go back to my room to get my ATM card, I will not then that's enough time for me to process, all right, this is stupid. The night's over. Just put your head on that pillow and you'll go straight to sleep. All right? So I'm smart enough to know if I go to my room, if I make myself go to my room, I will not leave my room again. So I just got to put that in front of me. And that's the way I would operate in casinos in Las Vegas. I'd have I'd have cash. This is what I'm spending tonight. I don't assume I'll have any of it tomorrow. And if it goes well, that's great. Unexpected, but great. And if it doesn't go well, hey, I've already chalked it up as a loss before I even walked out the door. It's fine. That's my approach. I don't know if it's good, but that's mine.
It was a good time, man. Also, like I used to love buffets as a child, and I don't get to enjoy a buffet that often anymore. And man, they got a hell of a buffet at Southland. Like my God, I was eating with Vernon and Rosary. I had 3 plates. It was incredible. There's nothing like a good buffet.
Man, there ain't nothing like a good buffet. I ain't seen one in a minute, you know?
They got one at Southland. They got a good buffet, man.
Maybe I should go.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just load up my pockets with cash and go to Southland one day. Maybe we'll do it together.
Let's do it.
You know?
It is. Dude, it's like 10 minutes from here.
Yeah, why couldn't we just say rep your hood and just hop right in the car and just pop over one after and just have us an afternoon? I don't know why we can't do that. We always talking about things we're going to do. We never do nothing.
Let's do that. Let's go to Southland, yeah.
Let's go to Southland. See if Kelsey wants to go too. She seems like she enjoys it. So we'll bring her too.
What are we
Well, wait, I got to pick the game.
Oh yeah, Fever Storm. Oh, I gave you the number. Seattle Storm, the 9.5-point favorites. How you
9.5?
It's a big number. They're at home. They're inside
9.5.
It's Climate Pledge Arena, Bennett. What do you expect? You know what Climate Pledge Arena is like.
Come on, man. I got the fever. I got the fever.
You said it's too many points to give to. This is actually an awesome night. All right, like we have the debate. That'll be interesting at least.
I can't wait.
We got the second. We got the second round of the draft, and then seriously, at 6:00 tonight on Prime Video, Amazon Prime, you get the Aces in the Sky. That's Asia Wilson and Angel Reese. That's awesome, right? And then tonight, after that, 9:00 on Prime Video, it's the Caitlin Clark Show inside Climate Pledge Arena. What more do you want from a sports night?
I got the fever. Give me the fever.
Bennett said he's got the fever. It's too many points to give Caitlin Clark. Plus 9.5. That's the play.
What are we watching on TV?
I mean, it's got to be the presidential debate, doesn't it have to be?
I think that's what you have to watch.
8
You
o'clock.
have to do your duty as an American. And watch it. Yeah.
8 o'clock. It's on CNN.
Don't
It's
look
Donald
away.
Trump against Joe Biden, a super old man against another super old man.
How far into the debate does it go completely off the rails?
9 minutes.
Oh wow, that's a pretty long. If it goes 9 minutes without going off the rail, I will be surprised.
Well, I did read that they're cutting mics. Like you're just not going to be able to just jump in on each other the way they have in the past.
Okay.
The whole thing's just going to be honestly sad. It's just sad as a country. This is the best we can do, or that this is what we're doing. Like I know who I'm voting for. I imagine most people do at this point. But the idea that these are our options, these are our serious options, that one of these people, one of these men are going to be the next president of the United States is outrageous to me. Like, absolutely outrageous.
Lee said you should have had me pick the winner of the presidential debate instead of the biggest game tonight.
Okay.
Can we double up? Can we double dip?
Just all politics aside, who do you think performs better tonight?
Who do I think performs better tonight? I mean, define a good performance, because that's. I mean, I think I'm gonna say the people that want. Here's the thing: the people that want Donald Trump to have a good performance tonight are going to say he had an amazing performance. People that want Joe Biden to have a good performance tonight are going to say he had an amazing performance. So I don't know if there's a way to gauge that.
Well, the real risk is that if you're looking at downside, Trump's just going to be what he is, And if you like him, you'll like him, and if you're disgusted by him, then you'll roll your eyes at the whole thing. but he's just going to be what he is. I don't think there's much downside for him, because what is the downside? Oh, he might say something stupid. He says stupid shit every day. Nobody cares. The people who love him don't care. All right. He largely doesn't know what he's talking about when actual political topics come up. He's just up there. It's like he got put into a pregame show on the Stanley Cup final, but knows very little about hockey, and it's just like, hey, and we're back in 3, 2, 1, go, and you just got to do your best. That's like every debate for him. He's just like up there just talking, and the people who are disgusted by him like recognize that, and the people who love him just like think it's funny. So like that's going to be how it goes for him tonight. With Biden, it could be really bad. I mean, like, this dude just freezes up on stage or walks the wrong way or falls down, or like it could be one of those moments. And those things do matter. There's some real thought, and I don't know how deep to get in the weeds on this, but like this is the earliest presidential election we've ever had in terms of the calendar. Like, it's June 27th. We don't usually do these things this early. And there is some thought, and I don't even know if it's like it's just stuff that pops in. If I'm being honest, I probably saw it on the For You tab. All right?
Yeah.
I probably saw it on the For You tab.
Yeah.
That For You tab take you into some weird places. Dude, I'm in the studio last night trying to get ready for the draft. I accidentally get on the For You tab, and I'm just watching planes crash.
It's crazy on there.
It is crazy on the For You tab.
Crazy on there.
Like, it's like, watch this plane crash into people. It's like, why am I watching? I am trying to figure out how to pronounce Zachary Richichet, and I'm just watching plane crashes. What is going on? That For You tab is wild. So I acknowledge up front I might have seen it on the For You tab, but I seen it somewhere. They said the reason you want to have the presidential debate this early is because if Biden embarrasses himself on a big stage, then you got time to maybe run somebody else against Donald Trump in November. Do you have an opinion on that? There are people, I don't know if they're serious people, but there are people who are still, as of this moment on June 27th, that think Joe Biden ain't really going to be the option when we go to vote for the Democratic Party in November, that somebody else will emerge as the candidate, that Joe will politely step aside. You got any thoughts on that?
I don't think I believe that.
Yeah,
I don't think I believe that. I think that would have already happened by now.
I don't think I'm smart enough to know. I will tell you this. If you're watching this show, you probably know who I am and how I vote and who I'll vote for in November. Like I see all the same things you see when I look at Joe Biden, President Biden, but the truth is I would vote for Joe Biden in a coma before I voted for Donald Trump for anything. I think one man's decent and diminished, decent but diminished, and the other man's just not decent. And so I would vote for Joe Biden in a coma before I vote for Donald Trump. But I really do think it is crazy that the same leaders on the left who will say Donald Trump is the biggest threat to democracy in the history of our country, whether that's true or not, I don't know, right? Some people say it and they like really believe it. Other people like laugh at that. I don't care what your opinion of is that. I just know that there are serious people on the left who say, they claim, they insist Donald Trump is the biggest threat to democracy in the history of our country. If you really sincerely believe that, what that means is if you think if he wins this election, our democracy is at risk. Like if you say that, that's what you believe. How can then you say that and then be the same people who are running Joe Biden against him? And this speaks to nothing about Joe Biden's ability to run the country. It's just from a vote-getting perspective, the majority of this country does not believe that he should continue as president of the United States because he sometimes appears to be in a diminished state. He's 81 years old and having tough times on camera a little too often for any of our comfort. So that's the frustrating part of all this for me. I look at these people and I say, if you're telling me Donald Trump is the biggest threat to democracy, all right, I believe you for the sake of the conversation. Why are you running this guy who you know most of America doesn't believe in against him? How are you letting an 81-year-old that most of America no longer believes in be the only thing standing between the guy you say is the biggest threat to democracy and the White House? That's insane to me. So the stakes are high for this tonight because, Joe Biden needs to perform well. I think it's much more important for him than it is for Donald Trump. He needs to look like he's not what so many people continue to jump online and insist that he is. So, I got CBS Sports HQ responsibilities tonight, but at some point I am looking forward to getting in front of the TV and just seeing how this thing goes. I wish, as an American, I wish we were watching two other people debate tonight as the nominees for the two biggest parties in our country. I would like to replace both of them, but this is what we got. So, I'll be there 8 o'clock on CNN.
What's the best thing we've read?
Well, my 2024 mock draft, those are done because we knocked out the first round last night. Time to do a 2025 mock draft. I have submitted it to my editors. I'm not sure if it's been published in the past couple of hours or not, but at the top, for the first time in 3 years, I've got an American going number 1 overall. 2 years ago, or 1 year ago rather, it was Victor Wembanyama from France. Last night, Zachary Richichet from France. But next June, it should be an American, and that's Cooper Flagg, the 6'9" forward who is headed to Duke. He's been a phenom for a while now, recognized as a generational talent. Whereas there was real questions up until last night's draft about who would be the first pick in last night's draft. At this point, there are no questions about who will be the first pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Could things change between now and then? Sure, they sometimes do. But I'll just put it this way. If we were holding next year's draft right now, all 30 franchises would take Cooper Flagg number 1. And there's a chance that if you'd have just thrown Cooper Flagg into last night's draft and just said, hey, he's 1 year too young for this. He's younger than everybody else, but we'll make him available. If you want him, you can take him. Even though he just graduated high school like a few weeks ago, he would have probably been the number 1 pick last night. Generational talent, should be a National Player of the Year candidate as a true freshman at Duke. He's at the top of my 2025 mock draft. I did the first 14 picks, the lottery. You can find it at some point today, cbssports.com.
What's on tap for tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow's Friday, so we'll be looking back at day 2 of the NBA draft, getting ready for a fun weekend. Jessica Benson going to be in studio. I'll join her from right here in Stamford, Connecticut. Looking forward to that already. Can't wait. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll enjoy mine. We'll meet back here tomorrow at 10. Till then, be careful, be kind, be good. Rep your hood.